Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your sleepy storyteller, pulling you down the rabbit hole of time, where dreams and memories intertwine. If you enjoy these videos, please tap the like button. It really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep drifting along on your sleepy journey through history. And before we wander down the rabbit hole, share your city and time in the comments. I love imagining our journey threading through every ticking clock. Now, take a moment to find a comfortable resting position. Close your eyes gently, and in your own time, allow yourself to sink into the quiet atmosphere of the past as we begin our slow journey together. Tonight, our walk takes us to New Orleans. Mardi Gras season, February 2006. The first carnival after the devastating Hurricane Katrina. The city hums with a fragile vitality, a mixture of celebration and remembrance. There's music, laughter, and the shimmer of color, but beneath it all, there is the echo of what was lost. The homes, the neighborhoods, the streets that once were. And yet, the streets pulse with life, a testament to a city that refuses to be defeated. I begin my walk on St. Charles Avenue, moving quietly behind the crew of Rex Parade. The avenue stretches out like a ribbon of history, framed by majestic mansions, their facades draped in purple, green, and gold. The great live oaks arch overhead, their limbs twisted and interlaced, forming a natural cathedral that seems to hold both past and present. Sunlight filters through the leaves, dappling the street in shifting patterns, while the smell of magnolia, warm brick, and freshly baked king cakes floats faintly through the air. The first floats appear like beacons of color and light. The King of Rex float towers above the crowd, gleaming with golden filigree that catches the late afternoon sun and scatters it across the street in playful sparks. The king himself sits enthroned, robes of velvet and silk cascading down the sides of the float, crowned in glittering gold. His wave is slow, deliberate, regal, a gesture that seems to bless both the city and the celebration itself. Around him, young attendants toss strings of beads, their laughter mingling with the beat of drums and the brassy calls of horns. I watch a strand of beads sail past, catching the sunlight like a ribbon of liquid gold before it lands with a soft clink in a child's outstretched hand. Behind him, His Majesty's bandwagon rolls by, a moving orchestra of sound and color. Brass instruments shine like molten metal, and the musicians' faces gleam with focus and excitement. The music they create is not just melody. It is a heartbeat, resonating through the street, vibrating in my chest and toes. Cymbals crash, drums roll, trumpets blare, and every note seems to sweep across the avenue, stirring the crowd, drawing cheers and laughter from the spectators. I take a deep breath, letting the rhythm wash over me, carrying away the weight of months past. Then the king's jester's float appears, a whirlwind of energy and mischief. The jesters themselves, dressed in the traditional Mardi Gras palette of purple, green, and gold, caper and leap with contagious joy. Some toss beads, others twirl, juggling and dancing as the float rolls steadily forward. Their painted smiles are exaggerated, almost surreal, yet behind them I can sense pride and determination. This performance is not mere entertainment. It is a statement of survival, of defiance, of life continuing despite the shadows of tragedy. Children squeal and run to the edge of the street, their hands lifted high, eyes wide with delight. The laughter ripples across the crowd, mixing with the music and the chatter, creating a tapestry of sound that envelops the avenue. The floats are a study in detail and devotion. The Beaux-Arts and Letters theme for 2006, chosen in the wake of Katrina, honors the city's rich artistic and literary history. I linger on the homage to John James Audubon, whose birds seem almost alive, feathers sculpted with such delicate precision that they might lift off at any moment. Next to it, a depiction of Clementine Hunter's vivid folk art explodes in color. Scenes of rural life, of work and celebration, transformed into monumental expressions that demand attention and respect. I can almost hear the brushstrokes of her paintings in the way the float's colors blend and contrast, the reds and blues and yellows forming stories in motion. Writers, too, have a place here. A float devoted to Tennessee Williams captures the tension and longing of his characters, their exaggerated gestures, frozen mid-drama. Even in papier-mâché form, the emotion is palpable. Desire, despair, humor, and critique, all rolled into one magnificent moving tableau. Nearby, John Kennedy Toole's eccentric creations leap and dance, mischievous and witty, reminding the crowd that even amid loss, the city's irreverent spirit remains unbroken. As I follow the parade, I notice the interaction between the floats and the spectators. Beads fly through the air like sparks of light, landing in small clusters on the heads of children and the outstretched arms of adults. I see grandmothers with weathered faces, eyes bright, reaching for a small token, just as their grandchildren squeal beside them. Families, still recovering from the storm, have adorned their homes with decorations, flags, and banners. Many have patched windows and fences, the scars of Katrina, visible but softened by effort and care. And yet, the pride in their eyes is unmistakable. They are here, part of this living, breathing celebration, a declaration that life continues. The streets themselves carry stories. Brick sidewalks, scarred and uneven, bear the imprint of countless footsteps, both pre- and post-Katrina. The live oaks overhead whisper in the breeze as though murmuring secrets from decades past, their shadows stretching across the avenue like protective guardians. I can feel the gentle hum of the city beneath my feet, in the sway of the crowd, in the steady rhythm of the music, in the soft brush of the evening wind against my skin. I pause briefly, letting the spectacle imprint itself fully into my senses. I smell roasted nuts from a nearby vendor, sweet and warm, mingling with the faint tang of brass from the bandwagon. I hear the murmur of conversations. "Did you see the king wave? I caught a bead!" And laughter rising in uneven, joyous crescendos. I see the sunlight glinting off golden filigree, the sparkle of sequins on costumes, the vibrant ribbons trailing from each float like tails of fire. Walking alongside these moving marvels, I cannot help but reflect on the debate surrounding Mardi Gras that year. Many argued it was too soon, that celebrating while much of the city still lay in ruins was insensitive, Homes were destroyed, families displaced, and the scars of the hurricane were everywhere, not hidden by masks or beads. But as I watch these floats, see the faces of children and elders, feel the pulse of the city around me, I understand the choice to celebrate. There is defiance here, yes, but also resilience, a stubborn insistence on life and joy. We choose to celebrate rather than surrender. The sentiment echoes in my mind, and here on St. Charles Avenue, I feel it with every step. The parade slowly winds along, the floats reflecting in the glossy surfaces of puddles left from earlier rains, their colors shimmering in fractured patterns. I notice the delicate dance of light and shadow across the brick facades and the stoops where people lean, offering cheers and applause. The sounds, the music, the laughter, the occasional cry of a child caught up in the moment form a living, breathing symphony. The avenue itself, lined with grand homes, wrought iron balconies, and proud families, seems to pulse with pride. Each house is a silent witness to the parade, each window a frame capturing human triumph, human endurance. Even the air feels alive. A warm breeze stirs, carrying the faint spice of roasted peanuts, the sweet hint of king cakes, and the underlying tang of street smoke from food vendors. I inhale slowly, letting the city fill my lungs, feeling an intimate connection to the place, the people, and the moment. It is intoxicating, grounding, almost sacred in its intensity. As the last of the Rex floats passes, I linger for a moment in quiet reverence. The crowd begins to thin slightly, some moving on to other streets, others lingering to savor the afterglow of the spectacle. I walk slowly along the avenue, past families still holding hands, friends comparing the treasures they've caught, children balancing beads and candy in eager anticipation of the next throw. St. Charles Avenue has given me its story, the grandeur, the pride, the cultural heartbeat of New Orleans. Tonight, Mardi Gras on St. Charles Avenue is more than a parade. It is a declaration, a quiet roar of survival, of artistry, of community. The city has chosen life over despair, joy over defeat, and as I take one last slow step along the street, I feel it in every flicker of sunlight on gold filigree, in every laugh, in every thrown bead. This is the city alive, resilient, and magnificent, and I am here, walking quietly behind its pulse, bearing witness to its unwavering spirit. The procession carries me forward, leaving the shaded tranquility of St. Charles Avenue behind, and guiding me onto Canal Street, the city's wide, sunlit thoroughfare that hums like a living organism. Here, the air vibrates with energy, the heartbeat of New Orleans itself made audible. Confetti drifts lazily from above, caught in a playful breeze, spinning and twisting like suspended snowflakes frozen in time. Purple, green, and gold flurries sparkle as they catch the sunlight, scattering across the crowd in slow arcs, landing softly on shoulders, hair, and outstretched hands. Street performers thread through the crowd, their movements fluid and mesmerizing. A juggler sends flaming torches into the sky, flames licking the air before landing with near-perfect precision back into his hands. A fire breather exhales a sudden column of orange heat that briefly warms my face, leaving a whisper of smoke and ash on the breeze. Musicians march in precise lines, horns blaring, drums rolling deep and resonant, the vibration settling in my chest, syncing with my own pulse. The sound is overwhelming, but it feels right, as if my heartbeat itself has joined the rhythm of the city. And then the crew of Endymion floats emerge, larger than life, challenging both gravity and imagination. The first float is the Wizard of Oz, a masterpiece of color and motion. Emerald City towers above, its gleaming green spires catching the sunlight like shards of glass. Dorothy's blue and white dress flutters in the wind, Toto perched loyally in her arms, eyes bright with mock curiosity. The Scarecrow stands mid-step, Tinman gleams with silver perfection, and the lion's golden mane seems to ripple with life. Flying monkeys hover on invisible wires, their mischievous eyes scanning the crowd, daring us to believe in the impossible. Children gasp and point. Adults lean forward with unguarded smiles, and I feel myself momentarily transported, as though the city itself has spun a little magic into existence amidst its lingering wounds. Next comes the golden calf, monumental in size and absurd in audacity. Its gilded surface glints in the sunlight, reflective and almost blinding. Faux gemstones embedded in its eyes glitter wickedly, mischievous and imperious. Revelers perched along the edges toss beads in wide arcs, letting them spin in the air before landing into the eagerly outstretched hands below. The metallic tang of paint and polish mingles with the warmth of the afternoon sun and the faint, earthy smell of worn asphalt. Children shriek in delight, adults laugh with abandon, and I feel a thrill at the city's audacious statement. Even after devastation, joy and spectacle remain undiminished. Then, the dragon float rolls into view. Its scales shimmer in iridescent greens and reds, coiling in intricate patterns along its massive frame. Smoke hisses from its nostrils, curling into the sunlight like living fog, lending the beast an almost mystical presence. Its glowing amber eyes sweep over the crowd, as if acknowledging our awe, our shared wonder. The accompanying drums and horns surge in rhythm with its movement, the vibrations pounding through the asphalt, into my shoes, through my bones, making me feel simultaneously exhilarated and small. Around me, children cling to their parents' hands, faces alight with terror and delight, while adults sway to the thrum of the parade, swept up in its grandeur. Finally, the 40th anniversary float emerges, a monument to memory, history, and pride. Every inch of it is adorned with intricate depictions of past parades, miniature floats captured in dazzling detail, banners fluttering proudly in the breeze. The craftsmanship is so intricate that I find myself leaning closer, tracing the delicate patterns with my eyes. This is more than celebration. It is a declaration, a moving testament to the endurance of culture, of traditions that have survived every storm, literal and figurative. Even in this moment of overwhelming spectacle, there is a solemnity here, a quiet reverence woven into the brilliance, as if the float itself honors every loss, every triumph, every heartbeat that has carried the city forward. Walking alongside these moving marvels, I cannot ignore the tension beneath the celebration. The scars of Hurricane Katrina are all around. Houses still boarded, rooftops patched with blue tarps, signs of a community that has endured far more than anyone could have imagined. And yet, the city moves. It refuses to be silent. Children wave gleaming strands of beads. Couples squeeze hands as they navigate the crowd. Elders sit with quiet pride, and even the air itself seems infused with determination. There is a strange, almost sacred defiance here, a refusal to let tragedy dictate the rhythm of life. I think of the conversation that rumbled through the city in those months after Katrina. Some believed that even laughter, even dancing, might be too much, too soon. But as I move along Canal Street, witnessing the brilliance of the floats, the glimmering joy on children's faces, the careful reverence in the way older residents clap and cheer, I understand. Celebration here is not frivolous. It is defiance, resilience made visible. It is a declaration. Life insists itself, even when the world has been torn apart. The streets are thick with spectators, a tide of humanity moving in imperfect synchrony. Every cheer, every cry, every squeal of delight forms a chorus that speaks louder than words ever could. People lean from windows and balconies, reaching down to catch beads, to touch the passing fantasy. Confetti carpets the pavement, an ever-changing mosaic beneath our feet, glittering like fallen stars. I bend to catch a single strand of beads, the plastic cool against my palm, feeling somehow connected to the generations that have celebrated Mardi Gras before, to the community that refused to surrender. Street performers dart through the crowd, acrobats spinning and flipping with gravity-defying grace. A unicyclist pedals along the edge of the median, tossing plates into the air, catching them with seamless rhythm. The air smells of fried food, warm and heavy with oil and spice, mingling with the earthy tang of asphalt and the faint perfume of magnolia blossoms from a nearby planter. Somewhere, a brass band swells, horns blasting in syncopation, the notes bouncing off buildings, wrapping the entire street in a tangible pulse. I slow my steps, letting the parade roll past me in all its grandeur. Each float feels alive, each performer part of an intricate dance that celebrates survival as much as spectacle. Canal Street has become a living canvas. Each cheer, each tossed bead a brushstroke in the portrait of a city unwilling to yield to despair. The parade is more than tradition. It is therapy, resistance, and reclamation, all moving past me in vivid color and sound. And yet, amid the joy, there is an unmistakable melancholy, subtle but persistent. The damaged homes, the boarded-up windows, the occasional glance of someone lost in thought remind me that this celebration exists alongside remembrance. The city is laughing and crying at once. I breathe it in, the tension, the jubilation, the grief transformed into music and motion. It is overwhelming, but in the best possible way, a total immersion into the spirit of New Orleans at this singular moment in history. As the last of the Endymion floats glides past, I linger for a moment, letting the sound and color settle into my senses. The crowd begins to disperse slightly, chatter filling in the spaces between fading drum beats. Confetti swirls gently to the ground, tiny motes of memory and joy. Canal Street stretches ahead, wide and sunlit, its sidewalks lined with the remnants of celebration, yet humming still with energy. In that moment, I understand the city's choice. Mardi Gras After Katrina was not just an event, it was a statement, a refusal to be defined by destruction, a declaration that New Orleans, with all its scars and triumphs, would continue to exist, to celebrate, to endure. And as I walk along the median, the sunlight glinting off discarded beads and the faint glimmer of confetti still floating in the air, I feel it. The pulse of a city unbroken, its heartbeat loud and insistent, echoing in every cheer, every whistle, every note of music that floats above the avenue. Leaving the wide streets behind, I turn down into the Marigny neighborhood. Almost instantly, the air shifts. The grandeur and formality of St. Charles Avenue, with its wide lanes and orderly rows of oaks, falls behind me. Here, the streets narrow, coiling between colorful Creole cottages that seem to lean toward one another as if sharing secrets. Each building tells a story of survival. Some are chipped and weathered, their shutters swinging loosely, others patched with bright paint where the hurricane's floodwaters left their mark. The contrast is striking. The neighborhood hums with the pride of its history, yet wears the scars of recent devastation like badges of honor. Balconies overhang the streets, festooned with strings of beads, feathered masks, and hand-painted signs. Some bear messages of hope. We survived, we dance. Others are cheeky or sardonic, poking fun at the political missteps that followed the storm. From above, I can see neighbors perched casually, their legs dangling, tossing beads and trinkets down to the crowd below. Their laughter rings out with a resilience I feel deep in my chest, and I can't help but smile as I watch. The energy here is different from the structured, almost ceremonial feel of St. Charles. This is improvisation and spontaneity, a celebration of life itself. The scent of Cajun spices drifts lazily from open windows, mingling with the faint aroma of wood smoke and sweet beignets frying in a nearby stall. It fills the streets like a warm invitation, pulling me deeper into the maze of Marigny's alleys and avenues. I notice the subtle sounds of the neighborhood, the soft creak of shutters in the breeze, the distant hum of generators, the murmur of conversations carried through the warm air. Every sound seems amplified here, echoing off the brick facades and narrow streets, creating a symphony that is uniquely New Orleans, uniquely alive. I follow a small walking parade, a cluster of locals in homemade costumes, their outfits stitched together from scraps of bright fabric and old Mardi Gras regalia. The floats accompanying them are tiny in comparison to the monstrous creations of Uptown, yet they have a personality all their own. A hand-painted wagon shaped like a crawfish rolls slowly past, a trail of colored powder puffing from its sides as children run to catch the beads it scatters. A man in a sequined frog suit leaps from the edge of another float, tossing glitter into the crowd while playing a hand drum that thumps in irregular, joyous rhythms. Each float tells a story of resilience and creativity, of a community reclaiming its streets, its culture, and its voice after the hurricane left so many silenced. One float depicts a miniature city submerged in blue waves. The words, "We will rise," painted boldly across its side. Children cheer as they run alongside, their laughter piercing the thick, humid air, carrying with it a sense of hope that seems almost tangible. I feel the vibrancy of this neighborhood pressing into me from every side. The music, the colors, the smells, the tactile hum of energy beneath my feet. Local musicians gather in corners, improvising as they go. A trio of brass players huddles under the shadow of a flickering street lamp, their instruments gleaming dully in the amber light. The notes curl and twist through the air, echoing off the facades of buildings painted in every color of the rainbow. A trombone slides mournfully into a soulful melody. A trumpet cuts in sharp and bright, and a saxophone thumps a grounding heartbeat beneath it all. The music feels alive, breathing in rhythm with the crowd, a living entity that carries the city's pain and joy simultaneously. I wander closer, and the crowd seems to part just slightly to allow me through, as though sensing that I am a quiet observer, not yet ready to join, but eager to witness. The sounds, the sights, the smells, they converge into a single sensation of being fully present, fully part of the moment, without claiming it. Here, Mardi Gras is not a spectacle staged for outsiders. It is a lived experience, a communal assertion of survival and identity. I pause to watch a woman with a mask, adorned with sequins and feathers, dance barefoot in the street. Her movements are fluid, improvisational, and she spins in time with a young boy beating on a makeshift drum. I notice how her skirt catches the streetlights, flashes of orange and magenta twirling with her. Around us, the crowd cheers and claps, but no one seems to mind the interruptions or the chaos. It is the perfect mess of joy, rebellion, and resilience. Some houses show the storm's scars vividly. Boards cover shattered windows, their rough texture contrasting sharply with the delicate decorations hung for Mardi Gras. On a porch, a family sits eating beignets from waxed paper plates, the children holding tiny hand-painted masks. A sign hangs above them, reading, "Flooded but not defeated." I feel a pang of sorrow mixed with awe. These streets are both testimony and triumph. A place where history is etched in the cracks of the buildings as much as in the laughter of its people. The air thickens as I move deeper, a mixture of humidity, spices, and the faint tang of river water that has seeped into the neighborhood months ago. I can almost hear Katrina in the whispers of the neighborhood, the boards rattling, the empty lots where homes once stood, the subtle gaps in the facades that tell stories no parade can fully capture. And yet, I feel something stronger, a determined pulse of life, beating with each drum strike, with every thrown bead, with every child's laugh. A small float glides past, a papier-mâché phoenix rising from blue waves, and the crowd erupts in cheers. I feel goosebumps crawling along my arms. The symbolism is impossible to miss. Even here, 6 months after the storm, the message is clear. We rise, we endure, and we celebrate our survival. I step closer, allowing myself to be drawn into the music and the color, to feel the neighborhood's heartbeat in my own. A trio of street performers captures my attention. A juggler, a fire breather, and a saxophonist who plays with his eyes closed, swaying as if carried entirely by the rhythm of his own creation. The fire casts fleeting shadows on the walls, flickering across the faces of revelers, painting them in hues of gold and crimson. Each spark illuminates a story of survival, of creativity, of resistance. I close my eyes briefly, letting the warmth of the fire and the vibration of the saxophone resonate in my chest. For a moment, time stretches and bends, and I am suspended in the living, breathing essence of the Marini. I wander into a side street where an impromptu dance has formed. Couples twirl, children leap, elders clap in time with the rhythm. Music shifts seamlessly from jazz to zydeco to brass band marches, and yet the energy never falters. It is endless, a flowing river of sound and movement. I feel a lightness in my chest I haven't felt since before the storm, a sense of belonging and connection to this place and these people. Everywhere I look, I see art spilling from the walls and streets. Murals depict musicians, floods, families, and masks. Graffiti carries messages of gratitude and hope, some political, some playful, undeniably human. The Marini is not just a neighborhood, it is a canvas, a living gallery of New Orleans soul. I feel like an intruder in a sacred space, yet the community welcomes me silently, allowing me to walk these streets and witness their triumph. I pause to rest on a low stoop, watching a group of teenagers pass, laughing, their faces painted, costumes bright, masks slightly askew. They throw beads with careless precision, the metallic colors catching the dim light of early evening. I hear snippets of conversation, fragments of local slang, and I feel the rhythm of the community resonate within me. This is resilience in motion, a human assertion of presence against the void left by Katrina. The sun dips lower, and the shadows stretch long across the streets. I follow a winding lane where small floats are queued, each decorated with humor, satire, or tribute. One float has a papier-mâché mayor being carried away by a cartoon hurricane, the crowd laughing as it passes. Another depicts a family emerging from a tiny house, arms raised triumphantly. I feel the complexity of the city here, grief and humor, tragedy and defiance, all braided together in the vivid threads of Mardi Gras. By the time I step back onto a slightly wider street, the Marini has fully revealed itself to me. The narrow alleys, colorful homes, improvised floats, joyous chaos, and soulful music converge into an impression impossible to shake. I breathe in the humid air, tasting the mix of spices, sweat, smoke, and hope. I feel the pulse of survival beneath every footstep, in every note of music, in every flicker of light. In the Marini, Mardi Gras is not just a spectacle, it is a living, breathing affirmation of life and continuity. It is a community reclaiming its streets, its homes, its culture, and its very identity. Walking here, I feel the city's heartbeat echo through mine, a slow, persistent drum that will carry me forward, deeper into the city's soul. Leaving the narrow, colorful streets of Marini behind, I drift into the French Quarter, my footsteps carrying me over uneven, weathered cobblestones that have borne the weight of centuries. There is a pulse here, almost tangible, vibrating through the soles of my shoes and up into my chest. Every stone, Every wrought iron balcony, every brick facade seems to hum with memory. Parades past, jazz notes long faded into the night, the whispers of revelers whose laughter once filled these streets. It is as if the city itself remembers every celebration, every sorrow, and every defiant declaration that it will endure. Jackson Square unfurls before me like a living tapestry, sprawling and luminous in the soft glow of late afternoon light. The square is alive with color, sound, and motion, an orchestration of human energy that feels both chaotic and deliberate. Masqueraders glide by, their elaborate costumes catching the sun and reflecting it in flashes of glittering sequins, beaded fringe, and velvet folds. Some wear gilded masks, shaped like birds or beasts. Others don feathered headdresses that sway and shimmer with every movement. I can see the artisan's care in every stitch, every hand-applied bead. These costumes are more than adornment. They are stories woven in color and texture, each telling of resilience, history, and identity. Street performers claim their corners and open spaces with a sort of theatrical certainty. Jugglers toss flaming batons high into the sky, catching them with precision that makes me hold my breath. Fire breathers send arcs of orange and gold curling into the fading light, and the heat of their flames brushes my skin, making the humid evening air cling with electricity. Percussionists pound rhythms on buckets and drums, creating a heartbeat that mirrors my own, while jazz musicians on corners riff and improvise, their brass and woodwinds intertwining in melodies that feel both improvised and predestined. The sound reverberates off the old buildings, ricocheting like echoes of the past, filling the square with a layered, almost sacred resonance. The scent of the quarter surrounds me, rich and pungent, a mixture of spices from open windows, the sweetness of beignets frying in nearby cafes, and the faint tang of the Mississippi River carried by the evening breeze. There is a subtle undertone of age, the faint, musky aroma of centuries of brick, mortar, and history, but it blends seamlessly with the festival's vibrant life. Every inhalation is a reminder that I am not merely observing history, I am stepping into it, part of its unfolding narrative, a witness to both the aftermath of Katrina and the city's fierce determination to reclaim joy. At the center of it all stands St. Louis Cathedral, its spires piercing the sky with the solemnity of centuries. I stop for a moment and tilt my head upward, marveling at its presence. Even in the midst of Mardi Gras' riotous celebration, the cathedral commands attention, a steadfast sentinel of faith and continuity. Its bell towers reach heavenward, and though the bells do not toll at this moment, I can almost hear the imagined clang resonating across the square and threading the present celebration to the spiritual legacy of generations past. Here, sacredness and revelry intertwine, the chaos of human jubilation dancing around a structure that has seen it all, quietly observing, quietly blessing, quietly enduring. I wander deeper into the square, allowing my gaze to drift over the performers and revelers. Children chase one another, their laughter bright and untamed, skirts of their costumes fluttering like small flags. Tourists and locals alike pause to watch a magician's sleight of hand, a street singer's soulful ballad, a band of percussionists whose rhythms drive the pulse of the gathering. Every corner of Jackson Square is alive, yet there is a rhythm, an order within the seeming chaos. I notice the subtle gestures, the nods and smiles exchanged between performers and audience, a silent understanding, a mutual respect for the art, the history, and the communal celebration of survival. It is impossible to ignore the shadow of Hurricane Katrina here. Broken shutters, patched with plywood, are painted in cheerful tones, almost defiantly bright against the gray of the underlying damage. Some businesses still bear the scars of floodwaters, their lower walls discolored and pitted. And yet, for every sign of destruction, there is a counterpoint. Balconies draped in Mardi Gras colors, windows adorned with hand-painted masks, front doors flung open to welcome the passing crowds. The city has survived, and its inhabitants have made a deliberate choice to celebrate, to reclaim joy, to assert that life continues even in the shadow of catastrophe. The square itself seems to pulse with that determination. I move closer to the cathedral, feeling the uneven stones beneath my feet. The crowd thickens here, drawn by both the grandeur of the structure and the gathering of performers around it. A group of masked dancers forms a circle, their movements precise and fluid, echoing styles passed down through generations. I can see the strain in some of their shoulders, the sweat glistening on their foreheads, yet their eyes shine with an almost feral delight. They are celebrating not only Mardi Gras, but survival, endurance, the sheer act of being alive in a city that has weathered calamity. I take a breath and inhale the scent of incense drifting faintly from the cathedral, mingling with the fried sugar from nearby beignets and the smoky tang of street performers' fire. A jazz quartet sets up nearby, their instruments gleaming in the waning light. The trumpet's brassy call cuts through the air, weaving around the strumming of a double bass and the tapping of snare drums. The music is improvisational, alive with the energy of the moment, yet deeply rooted in tradition. I close my eyes for a moment and let the sound wash over me, feeling it vibrate through my chest and legs, through the soles of my feet, mingling with the heartbeat of the crowd. Each note is a celebration, each riff a declaration. New Orleans is here, and it refuses to be silenced. From where I stand, I can see the crowds moving, ebbing, and flowing like tides, drawn toward street performers, food stalls, and fellow revelers. There is a shared rhythm to their movement, almost imperceptible, a gentle current guiding everyone through the chaos with a sense of cohesion. I notice the subtle interactions, the exchange of a bead for a smile, the quiet nod of acknowledgement between two musicians, the careful way a parent steadies a child among the throng. Even in the exuberance, there is tenderness, care, a recognition that the city's life is fragile yet enduring. I wander toward the edges of Jackson Square, where quieter corners offer glimpses of artistry, less bound by performance. Painters sit with canvases balanced on laps, capturing fleeting moments, the curve of a mask, the sway of a dancer's skirt, the light reflecting off a brass instrument. Poets murmur verses into small groups, their words rising and falling like gentle tides, unnoticed by the throng, but deeply felt by those who pause to listen. I can almost feel the brushstrokes, hear the syllables, and sense the devotion embedded in each creation. These are small acts of resilience, intimate counterpoints to the grand spectacle of the parade and the square itself. Turning my gaze back to St. Louis Cathedral, I notice the interplay of shadow and light on its facade. The golden glow of the setting sun kisses the stone, highlighting the intricacies of carved angels and saints. The contrast is striking against the deep blue of the approaching evening sky. I imagine those who have passed through its doors, parishioners who have sought solace, guidance, and faith during times of joy and grief alike. And I realize that even as the square erupts in celebration, the cathedral offers a silent, steady presence, a reminder that the city's heart is both human and spiritual. The people around me seem almost unaware of the weight they carry, the trauma of the storm, the months of rebuilding, the uncertainty of the future. Yet every laugh, every toss of a bead, every note played in the square is infused with that weight, transformed into something lighter, something joyous. The human capacity to reclaim happiness, even in the shadow of disaster, is palpable here, vibrating through the very air I breathe. I pause to watch a group of musicians improvise around a fire pit, their hands moving in synchrony over drums, their feet stamping rhythms into the cobblestones. The crowd gathers close, swaying, clapping, moving as if drawn by an unseen magnet. A woman in a sequined mask dances barefoot, spinning and laughing, her joy uninhibited, her defiance tangible. I can feel the warmth of the fire, the vibration of the drums, the electric charge of collective elation. This is Mardi Gras in its purest form, not just spectacle, but communion, an intricate weaving of survival, culture, and exuberance. As darkness begins to fall, the square transforms again. Gas lamps flicker on, casting pools of amber light on the cobblestones. Shadows stretch long, dancing with the movements of the crowd, creating a living mosaic that shifts and sways with the music. The cathedral looms above, now illuminated, its spires glowing like guardians watching over the celebration. I feel a profound sense of awe, a deep connection to the people, the place, and the history that saturates every stone, every note, every laugh. Here, Mardi Gras is not merely a festival, it is a living testament, a declaration that New Orleans has endured, that it can celebrate even in the aftermath of devastation, that joy and grief coexist in a delicate, beautiful balance. Every face I see, every note I hear, every color that flashes across the square tells the same story: survival, resilience, and the unyielding pulse of a city that refuses to surrender. I linger at the edge of the square, letting the scene wash over me, etching each detail into memory: the painted faces, the glittering costumes, the fire breathers' flames, the jazz musicians' crescendos, the cathedral standing eternal amidst the chaos. This moment, vivid, chaotic, sacred, and alive, feels suspended in time, a perfect intersection of history, culture, and human spirit. I inhale deeply, feeling the energy seep into my chest and settle into my bones. A reminder that even after the darkest storms, life continues, beauty persists, and the heartbeat of New Orleans endures. Eventually, The pull of the celebration carries me down Bourbon Street. The world shifts with a subtle, almost imperceptible shudder at first, then fully erupts into an electrifying cacophony of sound and motion. The music is everywhere and nowhere, weaving through the narrow, uneven streets with relentless insistence. Brass and drums clash and intertwine, competing with the thrum of bass from the clubs, vibrating against the cobblestones beneath my feet. Each step I take feels synchronized with the pulse of the city itself, a heartbeat, wild and untamed, thrumming through the soles of my shoes into my chest through every vein. The neon lights dance like erratic fireflies across the facades, flickering and bouncing off the polished metal of balcony railings. Colors bleed together in sudden bursts: ruby reds, electric blues, shocking purples, golds that glitter in the sweat and motion of the night. The signs flash their wild messages, teasing, daring, drink, dance, be free. Shadows twist and elongate across the crowd, morphing people into living, breathing silhouettes of celebration. I can feel the heat of bodies pressed near me, the subtle jostle of shoulders and elbows, the rush of warm breath from strangers in the mass of revelers. Here, the energy is a physical force. It presses at me, licks at the edges of my consciousness, demanding surrender. I feel the urge rising within me, subtle at first, then undeniable, a longing to shed restraint and step fully into the chaotic revelry that surrounds me. The music courses through my veins like liquid fire, each beat igniting an almost primal need to move, to join, to exist in rhythm with this human tide. The scent of Bourbon Street is its own intoxication. Fried food hangs in the air, sweet dough and spicy sausage mingling with the musky tang of beer and the sharp, bitter aroma of spilled liquor. Cigarette smoke curls lazily above heads, curling around signs and lights like a lazy serpent. There is also something more subtle, a hint of damp wood, of history seeping from the narrow alleyways, a faint undertone of salt from the river not far off. Each inhale brings the city deeper into me, as if I am no longer walking through Bourbon Street, but becoming part of its pulse. The crowd is a living, writhing organism. Hands shoot beads into the air, fingers clutching to catch them, tossing them again with gleeful abandon. Laughter is omnipresent, ringing high, clear, and sometimes sharp. Voices call out in challenge and delight, in jest, in flirtation, in pure exhilaration. Music competes with shouting, with the clatter of glasses, the shuffling feet, and every sound blends into a dizzying, intoxicating symphony. I watch, wide-eyed, and cannot help but smile, my own pulse quickening with anticipation. And then I see her. A woman perched on the edge of a balcony, her hair loose and wild, catching the neon glint in soft, tousled waves. Her eyes are bright with daring mischief, and her laughter rings across the street, slicing through the music and crowd noise like a bell. She leans forward, teasing, leaning toward the eager hands of onlookers, and then she bares herself, her breasts fully revealed in a fluid, fearless gesture. The crowd erupts, a roar of approval, of astonishment, of joy. I am mesmerized, not simply by the sight itself, but by the audacity, the confidence, the raw human vitality it represents. It is a living symbol of the city's defiance. the refusal to be subdued, the celebration of life even when shadowed by grief. My heart hammers. My pulse spikes. I feel heat rush to my face. My hands tingle with a strange, electrifying awareness. And I'm acutely conscious of the tension in my chest, in my shoulders, in the space between wonder and desire. There is a peculiar intimacy to this moment, despite the throng. Her eyes, laughing, lock onto mine for just a second, and I feel connected, not in a romantic sense, but in the shared recognition of survival, of resilience, of unapologetic humanity. The beads tumble through the air, sparkling in fractured neon light, and the metallic clink as they hit hands resonates like tiny percussion, a delicate counterpoint to the drums booming in the background. Each toss feels like a pulse of life, a small, shining gift hurled through the chaos of survival and celebration. The street itself seems to breathe along with us, expanding and contracting with each cheer, each shout, each beat of music. Every storefront, every lamppost, every brick in the uneven pavement vibrates with history and current, tragedy and joy coexisting in a remarkable tension. I see faces illuminated in neon, smeared with sweat and paint, eyes glimmering with reckless abandon, mouths open in laughter or song. I see the scars of the storm too, boarded up windows, faded paint, lingering reminders that the night is layered with memory as well as celebration. I feel a strange duality here, exhilaration and reverence, indulgence and remembrance. The act of watching, of participating in this heaving living street, is not merely for entertainment. It is a meditation on survival, a reckoning with what has been lost and what must endure. The thrill, the excitement, the almost overwhelming sensory overload is balanced by the awareness of what it has taken for these streets to pulse again, for these people to dance and laugh in defiance of despair. The music becomes more insistent, more hypnotic, each note vibrating through me. Drums speak directly to the marrow of my bones. Brass horns slice through the night with an edge of sharpness that keeps me on alert and alive. People press past me, dancing and laughing, shouting, grabbing for beads, pushing, pulling, spinning. The crowd is no longer a collection of individuals. It is a single, living, breathing organism, and I am a willing, eager part of it. More women step forward, each with their own brand of defiance and celebration. One leans over, tossing beads with a grin, her laughter infectious. Another balances delicately on a railing, her body illuminated in flashes of neon, the sheer freedom she embodies impossible to ignore. I feel a dizzying mix of admiration, desire, and awe. Each gesture, each reckless act of joy carries with it the unspoken story of survival and the deliberate choice to embrace life fully despite everything. I feel my own restraint melting, the line between observer and participant thinning. I reach instinctively, catching a strand of beads tossed my way, and the touch is electric, connecting me tangibly to the human energy of the night. My senses are overloaded, sight, sound, touch, smell, all converging into a single, intoxicating impression of pure existence. I smell the sweat, the perfume, the fried food, the faint hint of rain lingering in the air from an earlier drizzle. I hear the music, the laughter, the shouts, the drums of life itself. I see neon colors bleeding into shadows, bodies moving with abandon, faces painted in joy and daring. And I feel it all, every pulse, every shiver, every tremor of anticipation and exhilaration that Bourbon Street offers in its wild, unrestrained, beautiful chaos. And yet, even amidst the rapture, I cannot forget the shadows. I remember the storm, the waters that tore through streets, the lives displaced, the neighborhoods that still bear scars. Bourbon Street is a dance of indulgence, yes, but it is also a statement of defiance, a testament to the unbroken spirit of New Orleans. The city celebrates not in ignorance of the past, but in full recognition of it, asserting that life, joy, and culture will not be silenced. Time stretches oddly here. Seconds feel elongated, yet the crowd moves faster than any clock can measure. I am swept along in waves of bodies, carried forward by music, excitement, and the collective heartbeat of the city. Each throw of beads, each cheer, each daring smile from a balcony feels like a declaration. We are alive, we are here, and we refuse to surrender. The heat of the crowd presses against me, the tactile sensation of human closeness mingling with the electric charge in the air. I feel a thrill, unlike anything else, a pure, almost spiritual connection to the city and its people. Bourbon Street, for all its debauchery and indulgence, has become sacred in a way I did not expect. Each action, each gesture, each loud shout, each bold smile is a prayer, an affirmation, a celebration of survival and humanity. I pause for a moment, taking in the chaos around me, letting the energy wash over me completely. I close my eyes briefly and feel the music penetrate every fiber of my being. The neon flickering in my mind's eye, the heat of the crowd on my skin, the thrill of life pulsing like an electric current. And when I open them again, the street has not changed, but I have. Bourbon Street has demanded surrender, and in surrender, I feel freedom. The raw, beautiful, uncontrollable freedom that only this city, in this moment, can offer. Here, amidst the chaos, the lights, the music, the revelers, and the fearless women daring the world with every gesture, I feel the full weight and exhilaration of New Orleans itself. I feel the city alive, roaring, laughing, and daring the world to forget it. And I feel alive too, utterly and completely, in step with every heartbeat, every drum, every flash of neon, every bold, gleaming smile that turns despair into defiance, grief into celebration, and survival into pure, vibrant joy. I leave the frenetic roar of Bourbon Street behind, the neon lights and endless clamor fading slowly in my ears, replaced by the softer, warmer pulse of Frenchmen Street. The transition is almost imperceptible at first. One moment, I am carried along by the chaotic tide of bodies, laughter, and shouting. The next, I feel myself slipping into a different current, one that hums with intimacy and history, with music and memory. The street narrows here, and the crowd thins, making space for me to wander without being swept away. The air smells different too. Less of spilled beer and street food, less of smoke and chaos. Here, it carries the delicate spice of Creole cooking from small restaurants, the musky sweetness of jazz clubs, and the faint, sharp tang of the Mississippi River, drifting in from somewhere far off. I inhale slowly, letting the scents anchor me to this city, to its people, to its resilience. Frenchman Street feels like the soul of New Orleans laid bare. Quieter than the French Quarter, yes, but no less alive, no less vital. From every doorway, jazz pours outward like warm sunlight. The sound is improvisational, alive in its unpredictability. A trumpet bends a note in a way that makes my chest ache. A bass hums deep and steady beneath it, and the piano leaps and tumbles, playful and intimate. Each instrument converses with the others, creating a tapestry of sound that wraps around me. I pause to listen, letting the music seep into my bones, feel its pulse in my heartbeat. It is raw, unpolished, human, and I realize that this is exactly what the city has become after Katrina. Raw, unpolished, human, but indomitable. I step closer to a small club where the door has been flung wide and the light spills into the street in soft, flickering candle glow. Inside, a quartet plays, their instruments catching the light like molten metal. The trumpeter sways with each note, eyes closed, lost in the melody, while the drummer taps brushes against his snare with delicate precision, conjuring rhythm from air and silence alike. A saxophonist leans back slightly, letting the horn's voice rise and fall, bending time and space in the way only jazz can. And the piano, oh, the piano, its notes tumble over one another, spiraling upward, downward, and sideways, like water flowing over cobblestones. I linger outside, watching, listening. The music spills onto the sidewalk, and I feel as though I could step right into it, becoming part of the melody, a note in the city's living song. Around me, couples sway gently, hands clasped loosely, faces lit by candlelight and the subtle glow of street lamps. A child stands on tiptoe, wide-eyed, reaching for a stray note that seems almost tangible in the air. Everyone here, musicians, listeners, wanderers like me, is united by the music, by its storytelling power, by the fragile beauty of life after loss. As I walk further, Frenchman Street opens into small courtyards where street performers gather, impromptu audiences forming in half circles around fire eaters, dancers, and guitarists. The flames flicker and snap, casting shadows that leap and twist across the brick walls, making the world feel alive with secret life. I hear laughter, low conversation, the click of glasses and quiet toasts. It is a slower, deeper rhythm than Bourbon Street, a rhythm that demands attention, not surrender, that asks you to feel rather than simply react. I stop at a small cafe where the door swings open with a soft creak. Inside, the air smells of roasted coffee and sweet beignets, a reminder of simpler comforts in a world still recovering. Patrons sit on wooden chairs, swaying slightly to the muted strains of a guitar, their expressions peaceful, content. Some nod at one another in silent acknowledgement, strangers bound together by music and shared presence. I take a slow breath, letting the warmth and aroma settle over me like a comforting blanket. The street itself is a patchwork of old bricks and worn cobblestones, uneven beneath my shoes, each one holding its own story. Some are chipped from decades of foot traffic, some cracked from the floodwaters that had swept through the city just 6 months ago. I trace the path with my eyes, imagining the residents stepping cautiously over the stones, rebuilding their lives, reclaiming their city. I hear the faint creak of wooden balconies above, the soft scurry of feet, the whisper of wind threading through the ironwork. This is the heartbeat of New Orleans after Katrina. Persistent, inventive, unstoppable. I pause beside a small jazz club where the doors are open wide to the night. Inside, a trio plays a slow, smoky tune. The double bass hums low and steady, grounding the melody. The trumpet cries softly, each note stretching and bending as though questioning the very air. The drummer taps lightly, almost in conversation with the bass, the cymbals whispering in the corners. And I, standing in the doorway, feel it. The weight of the city's grief, its exhaustion, its determination, and its joy, all wrapped into a single, soaring song. The first Mardi Gras after Katrina had been more than a festival. It had been a statement, a tribute, a defiant affirmation of life, culture, and community. Walking these streets, I understand why the people chose to celebrate rather than surrender. Every note of music is a declaration. Every smile, a victory. Every whispered laugh, a testament to survival. Frenchman Street is the quiet, soulful afterglow of that defiance. A place where the city's spirit can exhale after the frenzy of Bourbon Street, where it can reflect and remember, and yet continue to create. I continue along the street, moving past small restaurants where the scent of jambalaya and gumbo drifts into the night. Patrons sit on low stools, nodding to the rhythm of a clarinet solo spilling out from a nearby doorway. A couple dances quietly in a corner, their movements fluid and unself-conscious, guided solely by the music. A street painter leans over a canvas, his brushstrokes loose and expressive, capturing not only the scene before him, but the essence of a city reclaiming itself. The night deepens, and Frenchman Street becomes a living mosaic of sound and color. The laughter of children echoes down alleyways, mingling with the low hum of bass and the occasional wail of a trumpet. The lanterns above sway in the wind, casting dappled light that makes shadows dance along the walls. I feel my pace slow, my senses drawn outward, absorbing every detail. The rough texture of the brick beneath my fingers as I brush a wall, the cool dampness in the air, the warm glow of candlelight flickering across painted ironwork. I find myself lingering by a small bar where a band plays a slow, haunting ballad. The saxophone cries in a way that makes the hair on my arms stand on end. The piano rolls like distant thunder, and the double bass keeps a heartbeat steady enough to hold the world together. I close my eyes for a moment, letting the music carry me, imagining the city in all its glory and struggle, the resilience of its people, the laughter, the tears, the music that refuses to die. Even now, 6 months after Katrina, the street tells a story of survival. I see it in the way the musicians play with such intensity, as though they are exorcising the city's pain, one note at a time. I see it in the faces of those gathered, the young and old, locals and visitors alike, each soaking in the music, letting it wash over them and mend the invisible cracks left by the storm. Frenchman Street is a sanctuary, a living testament that the soul of New Orleans cannot be drowned, cannot be silenced. I walk slowly to the end of the street, listening to the music fade into the night, feeling the pulse of the city lingering in my chest. The first Mardi Gras after Hurricane Katrina had been more than a celebration. It had been a reclamation of joy, a defiance of despair, and a vivid statement that life continues, even in the face of unimaginable loss. Frenchman Street embodies that spirit perfectly. Intimate, soulful, unyielding, a quiet but powerful heartbeat of a city that refuses to be broken. I take a final breath, letting the sounds, scents, and warmth of Frenchman Street settle into my bones. I feel a profound sense of gratitude, not only for the music, the celebration, or the city itself, but for the opportunity to witness its unyielding spirit firsthand. This is New Orleans, resilient and alive, a city that dances, mourns, creates, and celebrates all at once. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.